What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Jake Shavink here, and in today's video, we are going over some of the best day two fits for the Packers in the 2024 NFL Draft. It includes a few names that were mentioned in the Pick 25 video. Jordan Morgan, of course, one of those. He's an urgent mover in pass protection. He's got the quicks to mirror out there. He just has to refine his hand placement and hand usage. I think he can be a tackle or a guard at the next level. Kingsley Suamataia from BYU. More of a project. I think he has impressive athleticism. He just has to hone that in with more controlled movements in pass pro especially, but also in the run game. Edgerrin Cooper, run and chase, blitz, process what's going on between the tackles. He can kind of do that. It's just isn't really good at deconstructing blocks and taking on blocks from offensive linemen. But two really athletic linebackers, maybe Hafley's okay with that in the defense. And then, of course, Junior Colson, who fits the bill of the middle linebacker, right? Let Quay play further off the ball, let him run and chase, be a dynamo in coverage, and let Colson take care of everything between the tackles. Lastly, Marshawn Kneeland, of course, right? 6'3", 267, got that, powerful, explosive elephant rusher type that matches Lucas Van Ness and Rashawn Gary. All right, now we'll move on to some of the new guys. We'll start at the corner position. Andrew Phillips, I think there's a question whether he plays in the boundary or in the slot, just because you see him be fluid in transition. You see him good in his pedal, right? He has recovery quicks. He has plenty of speed to handle himself either on the boundary or in the slot. But what makes him a good slot guy is the flashes that he has, dipping around blocks, making plays in the run game, making tackles near the line of scrimmage. Like all of that makes me believe that he could really excel there. Now, having a player who's flexible and doing both, that's certainly helpful. He does have to work on being patient, staying in phase at the catch point. And when he is in recovery mode, he can't panic at the catch point. That's where it leads to penalties sometimes for Andrew Phillips. Moving along, Kyrie Jackson from Oregon, really interesting. He's got the prototypical size for a boundary corner, especially in a press man, middle field closed scheme. He's a disruptor at the line of scrimmage, right? He'll stay physical throughout the route. He's got some pretty good ball production. He flashes some good processing skills in zone coverage. I think there's more question about his speed and the fluidity, so it makes it a little more of a difficult projection where, you're going to be faster, you're going to be quicker at the wide receiver position at the next level. Max Melton, a favorite for Packers fans, of course, right? He's a little bit on the smaller side, 5'11", 187 especially. The weight is a little smaller than what Green Bay traditionally does. Now, when you look at the snap counts, you only see 60 snaps in the slot in 2023. I still think he projects best there. And when he is playing slot corner, you see two really good things at the line of scrimmage, especially when he's playing tight. He can jam, he can play the physical part of press coverage, or he does a really good job mirror and matching in soft press coverage. So when he's up at the line of scrimmage, either plan of attack for him, it works really, really well. I think, he has enough speed to work vertically, to stay with receivers on crossers over the middle of the field. He has to improve tackling, and there are some penalty issues, but Max Melton might be a really, really strong nickel in Green Bay, and of course, would instantly become a Packer favorite. Renardo Green, and he's 5'11", 186, and you think, so same projection to nickel. I don't think so. Obviously, the snap counts indicate that he's got plenty of experience on the boundary. He's got maybe a little more experience than Melton does in the slot. However, he is really, really strong with being physical, but still having good technique, good balance, staying fluid and quick in transition, right? He can play that kind of bump and run game, which is really effective, but he's quick in transition too, right? When it's driving back down on comebackers, curl routes, and maybe he gets a little overly aggressive, but he makes plays at the catch point. 13 pass breakups and an interception in 2023. Rounded out Cam Hart, right? 6'3", 202. Big guy at the corner position, and this might be the best fit in terms of he's big, but he's also fluid, right? The size fluidity ratio that you see with a corner like this, you don't see it a lot, right? Especially at 202 pounds, 6'3". So he can do the same things Jackson could do, right? Stay physical throughout the route, but he's got versatility. He can play in some man, he can play in some zone coverage. He obviously, the ball production is really the question. He doesn't have that type of catch point prowess and turnover creation that some of the other guys do, and he needs to be more consistent as a tackler, but Cam Hart really might be one of the better fits at corner for the Packers in any round. As we move to offensive line, Blake Fisher comes up first, right? Really prototypical in terms of the size thresholds for him. 2-year starter at right tackle. He's got impressive power, and that comes from displacing defenders. That's from pancaking defenders. He's got a really strong anchor in pass pro. He's explosive out of his stance. That helps him, generate that type of movement in the run game and get into his sets. I think he's got athleticism to be effective in zone. It's just more about strike timing and hand usage with him in pass protection that's going to help him reach his ceiling. Brandon Coleman from TCU, really like the film here. He's got snaps at left tackle and left guard. That's a really nice prerequisite there. 6'4", 313. Really impressive independent hand usage. When he needs to regain leverage with one hand, he does a really good job grip strength-wise. When you can work independent like that, you're just way more effective as a pass protector. He varies up his strikes well as well. He's got good extension at contact, and he's got reach and sealability in the run game. I think the question is the inside move shocks him a little bit. He does maybe not have NFL level agility and quicks at tackle, but that's okay. You kick him inside to guard. The Packers need that anyway. Dominic Pooney, one of my favorites from Kansas, 6'5", 303. He's got a lot of snaps at left tackle and left guard as well. I think the versatility is a major plus. There are teams that see him at center. He might be the guy who actually can play all 5 spots. I know we've talked a lot about Barton doing that, but he might be the guy who actually does it. I think he's got impressive quicks and control on the move. Like Coleman, Pooney's pretty good with some of these reach and seal blocks. He can dip his head a little bit in pass pro, but he's really good recovering. He knows when he's out of position. He knows how to get back in to really good leverage positioning. And I think he's got the impressive anchor, of course. And Pooney, to me, is about as good as it gets. He's one of my guys for sure in this draft, and I would be thrilled if he ends up a pick on day 2. Christian Haynes, now a little bit smaller, right, in terms of the height, 6'2" and 3/4, but man, you want to plug and play at right guard, he's the guy. He's tailor-made for zone, right? He's got initial quicks, linear explosiveness, second level's easy for him, reach blocks are easy for him, right? I think it's more about the awareness and hand usage and placement in pass pro that's going to help him reach his ceiling, and he did get a lot better with it down in Mobile. He was shooting the hands quicker, he was making them work independently, and throughout the week, you saw that development and growth. Now, imagine how he does in the NFL with a team like the Packers, who have done a really good job with offensive line development. Zach Frazier, we got to bring up center at least a little here. 6'2" and 5'8", so another guy that's more like Haynes in terms of the height, a little smaller, but 313. He's got a ton of snaps at center, right? Just 4 sacks allowed in his last 3 seasons. He's really good with sitting in really good position at contact, right? He's got a really good knee bend. He's got the leverage to play there. He's got good hand strikes and timing in pass pro. He fights to recover when out of position. He doesn't have elite movement skills at center, maybe like a Barton, but they're good enough, right? He can pull, he can seal, he can do all of those things that you're going to ask of him in the run game. And that type of, I think, leader and that type of feisty player at center is a player you'd like to have on your team. Kieran Amagaji, right? We've talked about him on the channel plenty, right? 6'5", 323, 36 and an 1/8 inch arm length, right? He's got snaps at left tackle, of course, but plenty at left guard as well, and just 26 pressures and a sack allowed in his career. Of course, that's a level of competition thing. He's got linear explosiveness. He's got impressive power, right? He flashes all of the impressive controlled movement skills you want to see at tackle. He just has to be more refined and consistent in every phase. And I think he becomes more of a project, right? You look at him like Kingsley Suamataia, but the return in a couple seasons could be immense. Roger Rosengarten from Washington, 6'5", 308. Plug and play right tackle. Hey, this is as good as it gets right here. And he's got the footwork. He's got the mirror skills. He can do really good things with hand strikes early in reps to get rushers off balance and off their game. I think he lacks a little bit of functional strength in the lower half, susceptible to the bull rush with some bigger, heavy-handed edge rushers. But in terms of quality of pass protection, like Rosengarten's up there with a lot of the tier 2 names. And I think, at 41, just pay attention. There's a possibility, at the very least, that Green Bay would go that direction that early. Mason McCormick, another one like Christian Haynes, where Haynes is more of the size and the height, but also Haynes, of course, only played right guard, lacks the tackle experience. McCormick does the same thing. He's got all of his snaps at left guard, but he's powerful. He can dominate with anchor. He can dominate with hand usage and hand resetting in pass pro. Right, he's a brick house. He's tough to move, and he can pancake guys in space. He does a good job in terms of pulling, right? He can handle that in terms of his movement skills. He's a little bit stiffer in terms of trying to mirror in pass protection. He is at guard, though, so it's not as much of a prerequisite, but I do think it's something to at least monitor with McCormick. Now to safety, and there might be some names on here that people are missing, but I only put 4 in here. I really like these 4 as fits. Ketan Oladapo, 6'2", 216. He's got snaps kind of everywhere, which is nice. I don't think he's going to play a lot of free safety. Box and slot is really where I think he is projected best, but that versatile deployment does matter. He's got a good tackle radius. He's an enforcer at the line of scrimmage. He's got the route recognition skills. Transitions are a little bit inconsistent, right, when he's getting out of the pedal, right, when he's got to kind of follow guys, trigger back downhill a little bit. And I think when you're ask him to kind of guard bigger guys in the slot, guard tight ends, right, he needs to be better positioned and ready at contact, right? You know, you talk about catch technique with a lot of these corners. Even at safety, Oladapo struggles a little bit, and then there are some balance issues there. Javon Bullard from Georgia, another Georgia defender. Yeah, absolutely. Sign me up. A little bit smaller, 5'10 and a half. 198 pounds, though. That's pretty good. You're looking more along the lines of Darnell Savage here. Plenty of snaps at free safety in the slot. So there's again, versatile deployment, alignment, versatile player. And he seems to always be in the right position, right? In terms of either he's in split field coverage, he's in single high, he needs to drop to the middle of the field. He's in good position to make plays, feels like all the time. He's got great click close ability. He's a good tackler. I think the size, of course, is the question, but overall, like when you look at, if you want a good nickel, if you want, kind of a guy who can do multiple things, I think Bullard can manage it. It's hard to find elite single high play, but Bullard might be one of the closest to it. Dadrian Taylor Demerson would probably be the other one. 5'10 and 3/8, 197. So pretty much in the same ballpark as Bullard here in terms of size. He's got way more snaps at free safety. This is your guy that I think can be the one who can handle single high duties. I think he's got enough range, and I think he's got enough processing speed and anticipation to play out there. He's got the ball skills, of course. He's improved as a tackler over his time at Texas Tech, and I think he is another one who could be a versatile piece, but you see him be kind of the complete picture. Angles and aggressiveness, right, in terms of going for guys in space and flowing downhill in the run game. Those are maybe the question marks with him, but another guy who could maybe take over the mantle with McKinney as an interchangeable single high. Jaden Hicks, the last of the safeties here, 6'1", 211. This is more of the box safety. I don't imagine seeing him at free safety a lot. I'm not as thrilled with this one, I'll be honest, but he's got instincts in ball production. He's a poacher over the middle of the field, similar to how Newman plays. He's physical as a box safety. I think the athleticism is sufficient. I don't think it's excellent. I don't think it matches the RAS, really. I think he has tackling inconsistencies. He takes some poor angles at times. He's over-aggressive. Sometimes it looks clunky in transition, to be honest. So I'm not as thrilled, but he's a young player, and maybe you see the ascension path there, and you take a player like Hicks to pair with McKinney to be that foil. Now to running back, there's a few names that I want to highlight a lot here. Trey Benson, of course, right? 6'1", 216. Had a pretty solid year in 2023, 14 touchdowns. You like that. For 79 missed tackles in 2022. A big breakaway run percentage this past year in 23. And you see that. You see the size and burst combination. He's a home run threat. He's got contact balance. He has an array of ways to force missed tackles. And whether it be, with decent lateral movement skills to just bowling over guys to, using power more indirectly than directly. He's got a lot of that, especially the balance is more indirect than direct. He can do all of that. He's got some good reps as a receiver as well. But that size with that home run threat ability is maybe really the draw for him. I think he's a little bit inconsistent in terms of zone blocking processing. I think he's going to have to be gap heavy initially. But if the Packers are going to be more inside zone and maybe still have some gap runs in there, right, bringing in Josh Jacobs, maybe things change a little bit. Benson becomes maybe a little bit more of a stronger fit here. Jalen Wright, 5'10 and a half, 210. This is your true home run hitter, elite speed and acceleration. He's got good stiff arm timing. He's got extremely quick feet to leverage multiple cuts, much like Jonathan Brooks does, who we'll talk about in a moment. But I do think he has some tendency to bounce things out. However, he's solid in pass protection, which is a big draw. And again, like Benson, I think we're looking at gap scheme early with the potential to develop the ultimate in terms of big playability that kind of operates more as the foil to what the Packers already have. And now to Jonathan Brooks, who's my RB1. I just cannot quit the skill set here. 6'0" and 3/8", 216. Again, 216 exactly like Benson. I had 1,135 yards and 10 touchdowns, 63 missed tackles forced, 51 first downs, right? He is incredible, extremely flexible back. And when you have that stop-start quicks, the stop-start acceleration, right, that flexibility with combined with good processing skills, good reaction skills as well, that's going to give you, more margin for error in terms of, okay, I need to bounce this out. I need to find a new gap, all of these things. And so that level of flexibility and quicks, I just don't think a lot of backs have that. And Brooks does in spades. The processing has continued to get better. I think he's a good zone deployment player as well as a gap deployment player. And he's a tremendous pass blocker, one of the best in the class. I think he's a step up from Wright in that regard. And he's got the burst for big runs as well. The ACL is the question, right? If he comes back healthy from that, he's RB1. If not, then we have to have a conversation about that. Now we go to defensive tackle. Chris Jenkins, we'll start with him. I think the production's really the biggest question for him. He just doesn't have that level of pressure and sack production that some of the top-tier defensive tackles do, but he's a dominant run defender, and that's kind of what Green Bay needs. If they're really serious about staying more on this lighter defensive tackle track, which I just don't think they're going to go near like T'Vondre Sweat in terms of size, they need guys who can consistently stack and shed in the run game, be in the right gap, sit and leverage, and really keep explosive runs down. And I think that's exactly what Jenkins is, with the athletic upside to be a good pass rusher. He just has to develop more counters once he gets to contact. He's trying to bull rush guys. He needs to be, more active with hand usage. He needs to be, good at timing some moves up and some strikes to find a way to generate pressure. He has a spin move, which is cool to see on film, but it has to be more consistent. Mason Smith from LSU. This is as maybe high an upside of swing as you're going to take. 6'5", 306, just 23 pressures and 3 sacks, another limited production, but he's coming off major injury. So that's something to monitor. Of course, he's powerful, athletic. He can hold the point of attack. He's got violent hands. That helps him as a pass rusher a little bit, but I do think you have pad level questions. Obviously, there's durability questions. And can he develop, like Jenkins, a pass rush repertoire at the next level? Michael Hall Jr. might be the best of the fits. I think these last two really are. In terms of, Hall's size, he's jumped up from the mid 280s to 299, did so at the pro day, looked really fluid. Even at that size, that's really, really encouraging. Again, the production, pretty mediocre, just 29 pressures and 2 sacks. But he's quick twitch defensive tackle with a very, very high ceiling as a 3-tech disruptor. He's got the arm length as well to be able to sit and leverage gaps on early downs to defend the run, and he can get off blocks really well. That's combined with being sudden with his footwork, sudden with that initial explosive movement, and sudden with his hands to, again, get linemen off balance, take advantage of when they're off balance, shed them quickly in the run game, but also get to that, club arm over move that he's got as a pass rusher. And when you have that jab step that kind of set that up, he's young, still ascending, and has so much talent that it's 100% worth it. If you're not going to get one of the top 2 defensive tackles, he feels like the guy that might be the next one up, honestly. He does get a little bit washed out against the run. He does get stuck if he doesn't surprise people with the bull rush. He can't counter off that as well. But the ceiling is tremendous with Michael Hall. And last on the list for defensive tackles, we have Rook Orororo, 6'4", 294. He's still new to the game of football, yet production is better than the other 3 on the list. 26 pressures, 5 sacks in 2023. Got 34-inch arms. That gives him a big advantage of the run game. He's impressive at shedding blocks quickly, and then has that impressive closing burst to limit runs between the tackles. I think his motor runs extremely hot as a pass rusher, but he has to improve the repertoire. Michael Hall Jr. has the best repertoire of the 4. Aurora might have just as much upside as a defensive tackle. Finally on the list at linebacker, obviously Cooper and Colson, we already mentioned them at the top, so they weren't included here, but Trayvon Wallace, you have to include him. Why? Because threshold-wise, size-wise, all of this, he's really in that tier 1 fit category with Tyler Guyton. And he's done a lot, 54 tackles, 20 pressures, 5 sacks, 33 run stops in 2023. He's got Mike linebacker size. He's pushing 240. He has flashed the ability to be a block deconstructor in the run game. He's got enough speed and range to play sideline to sideline. His improving feel and movement skills and coverage is encouraging. He's a little inconsistent with the run fits, right? He kind of retreats a little bit sometimes when offensive linemen are getting to the second level. So there's improvement really in all phases that are necessary, but I do think he is the type of player the Packers obviously would ignore consensus and pick at 88 or 91. So there you go. Plenty of day 2 fits there. I'm sure I didn't include your favorite, so drop that down in the comments below. But throw a like on there, subscribe if you're new. Draft content is obviously kind of reaching a peak here as the draft begins. We got the live show tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun, of course, Friday night as well. But there's going to be a ton of post-draft content around here, not just Packers based. So stick around for all that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Farewell.